In the Cut TV, welcome back everybody to a brand new video here with your co-host Haas. What's good?
What it do?
Hey, but today everybody, we got another reaction video. Today we're gonna be reacting to the 15 times the Simpsons predicted the future. So bruh, lately I feel like, you know, the Simpsons have been getting everything almost on point, you know. They be doing, bro. They showed like the virus, the protests, you know, all this shit. Right. But what were you saying?
I was gonna say, if not, they're like a little off, but they're still like the same shit. Like,
yeah, they almost get it, bro. Yeah. So I was just like, dude, and I saw one of the supposedly Donald Trump or like the president dying. I'm like, bro, that's crazy. If that were to come true, if that comes true, then the Simpsons, holy shit, they know everything. But nevertheless, let's get it. We're gonna confuse them.
Just 2 years ago, I made this video. Speaking of presidential elections, The Simpsons predicted Trump, as in President Trump.
As you know, we've inherited quite a budget crunch from President Trump. How bad is it, Secretary Van Houten?
Van Houten.
We're broke.
Crazy, right? By the way, is Lisa supposed to be Elizabeth Warren? Anyways, guess what? They got more stuff right. It's time for 15 more times The Simpsons predicted the future. First, let's travel back to 2017, when the show predicted how Game of Thrones would wrap up. The Simpsons thrust the family into the medieval kingdom of Springfieldia. Sure, there's a cameo from Jamie Lynn himself as Marge's twin brother Marjorie.
You get that money to save my mom.
I heard about
that. Never set foot in this hovel again.
This shit's sick or what?
It's fucking sick.
To those who... and even a three-eyed raven. But what made this especially fascinating, the final sequence of the episode that shows the family watching as a dragon burns down their village.
Oh, that's crazy. I've heard about this. And I guess it did come true.
A literal spitting image of the penultimate episode of Game of Thrones.
So they like predicted the last episode.
Havoc on King's Landing.
Yeah. I'm gonna rewatch this shit. I just hate the last seasons, bro. I hate the last seasons.
Damn, just
let me know if you guys are a Game of Thrones fan.
Animals, perhaps the most iconic one was introduced in this 1990 episode. That's right, this is when Bart and Lisa go fishing, and Bart catches a three-eyed fish. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, there's just like a nuclear plant. Yeah, right. Mutation. Yeah, mutated fish.
Of course, Mr. Burns, who's running for office, tries his best to prove that his power plant is not responsible for the genetic mutation that he calls Blinky. We all know the truth, and by the end of the episode, Mr. Burns convinces his critics when he couldn't even swallow his own story.
What the fuck? What the hell's going on?
Believe it, he's blown it for sure.
What the
before
fuck?
it hit the ground.
Now, Blinky actually became a real thing when a fisherman in Argentina caught a three-eyed wolffish that was similarly located next to a power plant. I'm guessing the power plant's owner didn't even think about running for public office.
Man.
We all know The Simpsons has predicted a handful of technological breakthroughs over the years, like video calling and smartwatches, to name a couple. Well, this is even crazier. Back in season 3, we found out that Homer's long-lost half-brother Herb, voiced by the great Danny DeVito, created a translation app to make sense of baby talk. Basically, you could tell if a baby was happy, sad, mad, angry, all that stuff.
Lavish attention on me and entertain me.
Maggie, you talk.
Many years later, in 2016, app developers in Taiwan created an app called Infant Cries Translator, claiming
I've
that
never
it
seen
could
some of these, huh?
Thank you.
That's it.
In this episode back in 1990, Marge is not happy with Itchy and Scratchy. She believes the show is promoting violence to children, and she starts a protest. She demands censorship and successfully gets the show to clean up its act.
Itchy and Scratchy seem to have lost their edge.
Oh, I think it conveys a very nice message of sharing.
We just looked at the camera like...
Over in Italy, we find out that Michelangelo's David will be touring the United States and make a stop in Springfield. Protesters gather in favor of...
This shit goes into like predictions I didn't even know in there, yeah.
Life imitated art, literally, when a replica of Michelangelo's David was set to be unveiled in St. Petersburg, Russia. Residents were actually asked to vote on covering up the sculpture after some complaints that it would be a bad influence on children. This episode is packed with predictions of the future, which we've touched on. 95
of VR?
Lisa stumbles upon a fortune teller that shows what life will be like in 2010. The future involves a romance with Hugh Parkfield, who brings her to London to meet his parents. Now this might seem like a stretch, but check out the London skyline. Some claim that this building is the Shard. I believe it. I know what you're thinking.
shark.
It's
What?
just a generic tall building, but
Yeah.
for the sake of this video, let's give The Simpsons the benefit of the doubt.
What?
This episode aired in '95, but the shard's construction didn't begin until March of 2009 and
What
opened
the
to the public
fuck?
in February of 2013.
That's
The 95
crazy.
story
Yeah, that's
skyscraper
crazy.
is the
I
tallest
know.
building in the UK.
What do you
Speaking
guys
of
think
British
about that?
icons,
What the
this
hell?
is a fun one about the
What?
Beatles that aired in 1991.
The
As it
Beatles?
turns out, Marge was a big fan of the group, especially Ringo Starr. In fact, years ago she painted portraits of Starr and she mailed one to him, but unfortunately she never got a response. It wasn't until decades later when Marge picked up her painting hobby yet again that Starr finally replied to her.
Thanks for the fab painting of yours truly. I hung it on me wall. You're quite an artist.
Yep, you guessed it, this happened in real life. Back in 1963, two teenage girls recorded a reel-to-reel tape and sent it to a theater where the Beatles were playing. Some 50 years later, the tape was returned to the women, and finally, Paul McCartney wrote a lovely letter for their kind gesture.
What?
Back in this 1992 episode, Homer gets kicked out of an all-you-can-eat restaurant
That's
for,
crazy,
you guessed
what
it,
the fuck?
eating too much. He then goes on to sue
They
the
be
restaurant for
predicting
false
everything.
advertising.
I didn't even know they predicted little things like this, huh? This is like, this goes like under, like, yeah.
Sorry, Marge. This is my quest.
No shock here, in 2017, a man in Massachusetts was kicked out of the Golden Corral after spending 7 hours at the
I feel like
restaurant and putting
that one's like whatever.
Yeah.
50 pounds of food.
Oh, wait.
After he got kicked out of the restaurant, he sued the place for $2 million.
For how much?
Since we're
$2
on
million?
the topic of
Did he
food,
win?
let's
I
touch
don't
on
know.
this.
That's
Let us know in the comments down below.
Homer took up farming and created
How to do
a
that?
hybrid tomato tobacco plant. The Tamaco was born thanks to the nuclear
Tamaco?
materials that Homer picked
What?
up for the power plant.
So what? To tobacco.
Like cigarette butts.
Over 20
What?
years later in Japan, as a result of the
Papa,
Fukushima
what?
power plant meltdown, nearby fruits and veggies took on some mutated forms. Good news, everyone, you don't need to
Crazy.
be an astronaut to travel to space.
Why not?
That's exactly what happened in this Simpsons episode and in real life. In the show, NASA needed to increase its popularity, so they decided to send an ordinary person into space.
the fuck?
Of
Okay.
course, they chose Homer Simpson. In real life, in 2013, a British man won a competition sponsored by, get this, the deodorant brand Lynx. His prize, a flight in space, which normally would have cost around £60,000.
Nah, see, that's like some general shit. Like, it's in general, like, that could fucking happen to anybody, bro. You know, the world's fucking big. That's bullshit.
Every May 10th.
There's two already that I'm not impressed. Like, okay. Oh, look, 420. Hold on.
From this snake heaven.
It was featured in this 1993 episode of The Simpsons, and thanks to Lisa, Bart, and the bassy voice of Barry White, the snakes were eventually saved.
What am I gonna do?
But that hasn't always been the case in our history.
What?
In fact, Whacking Day was inspired by some real-world events. In Florida, pythons were becoming such a big threat in the Everglades ecosystem that they started the Python Challenge in 2013. They actually recruited hunters to lure and kill the invasive reptiles, and the hunter who racked up the most kills received $1,500, while
Damn.
the longest catch took home $1,000.
Fuck.
This 1994 episode in
longest?
which the
Oh,
lunch
that's
lady
crazy.
Doris is shown cooking with, quote, assorted horse parts, now with more testicles, actually became a reality nearly 20 years later.
More testicles mean more.
What the fuck?
In 2013, there was a serious horse meat scandal throughout parts of Europe in which some beef products were found to have undeclared horse meat in them.
Ugh.
We all know that movie
Testicles?
studios will go to great lengths in order to get people seated in theaters. Take this one, for instance.
What?
This was an actual billboard used to promote Kill
Better.
Bill Volume 1 in 2003,
That's pretty
in which
fucking
a
cool.
bloody mess sprayed onto the street in nearby parked cars.
Huh.
Might be a bit overkill. if you
That is
The
overkill.
advertising
Sick, though.
agency was no doubt inspired by this 1992 episode of The Simpsons, in which a billboard for the Itchy and Scratchy movie spurted out blood onto the street below.
What the fuck?
He's got married.
Oh, they just.
Back in this 1998 episode, Homer's genius business idea hits him at breakfast. Well, while cooking up some breakfast.
Ooh,
He enlists
nice.
Bart to help him
Sounds
with
fire.
his grease business, buying bacon, frying it up, and selling the grease. Spoilers, it's nowhere near profitable.
Where do you think you're going?
It's the first day of school.
Not for you, it isn't. You're in the grease business now.
So they think bigger, as in stealing grease from the deep fryers at Krusty Burger. They're eventually
put it-
caught
Oh,
like these
that reminds me of Five Guys.
New York
That grease in the back.
Apparently,
Yeah.
yellow grease is a valuable ingredient in biodiesel and is highly coveted amongst thieves posing as legitimately licensed grease haulers. Guitar Hero was an absolute smash hit when it first landed on consoles back in 2005.
Fire.
The series spanned numerous titles and even some spin-off games. But before it even hit the public consciousness, the words Guitar Hero showed up on an episode of The Simpsons.
What the fuck?
Back in 2002, Homer lives out his dream at Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp, and it's run by the Rolling Stones. By the end of the episode, the Rolling Stones gift Homer with a jacket, and guess what's printed on the back of it?
And we consider it an honor if you join us.
Huh.
And finally,
crazy.
over the last 30 years, The Simpsons has correctly predicted a whole bunch of sporting events. That includes some Super Bowl winners, unfortunately not this past Super Bowl, halftime performers, and even Olympic curling. In this 2010 episode, Homer and Marge try out for the U.S. Olympic curling team after discovering their newfound love for curling. They team up with Agnes and Seymour Skinner, and surprisingly, they're so good they qualify for the 2010 Vancouver Winter Olympics. The team faces off against Sweden and wins gold behind Marge's fantastic play.
How's this for a date night?
Wonderful, homie.
So let me guess, the U.S. won.
Tell me how my
I hope so.
tastes.
Some 8 years later, this actually became a reality. The U.S. men's curling team beat the heavily favored Swedes to win gold in South Korea.
Huh.
What's your
That's crazy. I
favorite
remember
prediction
that.
that The Simpsons called correctly?
crazy.
Let us know in the
None of
comments
them.
below. I'm predicting that you're going to
Not saying
subscribe to this channel for more on this.
Sick.
Damn, that's crazy. Let us know some of the crazy predictions. I've seen some other crazy predictions. I didn't know about these ones though. These ones
These are crazy.
About that last one too.
Yeah.
That's kind of that's hella random, huh? Shit. But anyways, you guys, make sure you guys drop a like, a comment, subscribe. Make sure you guys click that bell so you guys get notified every time we upload. And like always, everybody, this is In The Cut TV and
Deuce.